Signs of the Southland, Monday, July 24th, 2023. Gentlemen, we have a great interview coming up later, but let's get some news out of the way. Let's talk about Chris Eubanks. Once again, he will be playing Andres Martin tomorrow, I guess today, when this episode goes out at the Atlanta Open. Jack, walk me through this matchup real quick.
Well, in a sense, it's the current versus current of Georgia Tech, but really it's kind of the older guard out there and the current guard of Georgia Tech. I mean, Andres is still an active part of Georgia Tech's team, and Chris Eubanks is 27, has been out of the program for a while, but at the peak of his powers, quite literally. He is very much globally famous now after his run at Wimbledon. Andres Martin played in this tournament last year as like the collegiate representative. I was at that match. It was a really fun time. I talked about this on an episode literally a year ago if you care to find that. But now we get jackets versus jackets, which is going to be really cool. Last year, like the cheerleading squad and everything came out. I think they brought the rec too. So I don't know how gung-ho. I assume they're going to do something similar and be kind of gung-ho about it.
Yeah.
They were pretty gung-ho about it last year. They played the fight song and everything. So I think it's going to be really cool. I expect if you're there, I would not be surprised if there's a lot of even more Georgia Tech quote unquote royalty there. Last year was the head coach that will not be named. And that was it, and he only stayed for a set. So I think this year will be a better showing, a much better showing. I know the Atlanta Dream have been at the tournament already so far for Coco Gauff's match. So it's already drawing folks. So it's a really cool event. I sadly won't be there, but I hope a lot of our fellow listeners and jacket friends out there will be able to show some love for them. Sadly, one of them has to lose. That's what I don't like about this. Someone has to lose this match. Like, I'm glad they kind of like curtailed it to like make it a first round guarantee, this kind of event part of the tournament, because it's a very low stakes tournament in the grand scheme of things. So it at least gives the Atlanta community their night at this tournament.
I drove by Atlantic Station on Sunday, and it looked midday. It looked hot out on the grandstand.
It's a hot tournament. I've got a couple times for the day, even in the evening. Yeah, it's not a super. You gotta have the next level pass that gets you into the air conditioned dinner part and whatnot, because otherwise, yeah, you're baking out there.
I mean, it's basically an erector set in a parking lot outside of Atlantic Station. Like it's not the you're not going to get big fans or anything like that above the grandstand. But better that it rained Friday, I guess, than Sunday when it was actually going on. But should make for a lot of fun. And Akshay, I do want to say that I think the way I would describe it is not just current versus current or current versus old guard, but court one versus court one. Chris was court one through and through in his time in the lineup. And I mean, Andres has been that for almost as long as he's been gone at this point. I mean, Chris is only 5 years out of school, so
it's not too long. Yeah,
it's court one. That's how I'm going with it. We'll have to keep an eye on the volleyball tournament that follows it up in case there's any local through lines there. But Tech does not have a beach team, so that's probably a little bit asking for much.
An ongoing bit that we will eventually come back to, I'm sure. Let's move on to another ongoing bit. Christo Lamprecht and his pretty exciting summer of golf. He won the R&A Amateur, which I believe was in Scotland. And also in Scotland, he was the low-am at the British Open or at the Open. I don't know. I don't really watch golf. I just read out the stuff that they put on the shot sheet. Notable for even a novice like me, he led the tournament after the first day. Not just led amateurs. He led the entire dang field after the first day.
Yeah, shot 5 under, was one of 3 guys to shoot 5 under after day one.
He was there with, was it Sink or Kuchar?
Sink.
It was Sink.
So for all of us that woke up at your average wake up time, 7:30, 8 a.m. in Atlanta on Thursday morning, Stewart Sink and Christo Lamprecht, or Lamprecht and Sink, were 1-2. Like, they were literally 1-2. There was a lot of people that still did tee off and everything like that. But yeah, he held his 65, 66, that was 5 under, held up as he was T1 with a couple other guys. Day 2 did not go that well. I'll just say that.
Yeah, it's not really much to talk about the rest of the tournament. He did make the cut, which I think is notable. He was the low am, which is also notable. He ended up tied for 74th at plus 11, which means, like Jack put in our shot sheet, he was better than your more notable names that even I know, like Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, and Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas has had a very weird couple of years.
He wins the
on
he won the
golf course.
PGA two years ago and just has fallen off a cliff during majors, weirdly enough. So that's funny. Yes, at the Open, if you don't know, the winner gets the gold medal and the low am gets a silver medal. So he gets to be part of the fine. He gets to be part of the end festivities when the tournament's over. Two Athenians were 1 and 2 from the Athens Community College at this tournament. So that was sad. We did get pummeled in that regard.
I've got nothing on the golf. It's just it's good to see, and can't really say too much.
Christo keeps making waves here. Like he won both. I mean, he won the corresponding low amateur to the amateur tournament that he had won, winning the R&A Open, and then at the Open getting low am as well, which I think is a cool little thing that he stayed consistent there. And he keeps making moves. Like this is what you do if you want to make a President's Cup team, is do stuff like this in the future. So and being T1 at the end of a major tournament it doesn't matter what round. I mean, especially the final round's the one that matters most, but it doesn't matter. Like that's huge, and that puts his name on the just on the international golf stage in a big way. Like that, a lot of eyeballs are watching that tournament. And that takes some guts to be leading that tournament.
Two other notes. Number one, the funny one first. There were a bunch of people talking about him that I did that Monday morning that I did not expect to be talking about him. Like Spencer Hall of Every Day Should Be Saturday fame was tweeting about how it was just this random 6'8" dude nuking golf balls on the golf course in Scotland in this bad weather. And I was just like, these two things do not coincide. What's going on here?
I went, I don't know a lot of 6'8" golfers. That must be the one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like him or Hiroshi Tai. And at that point, it's a tie between them.
Yeah.
No, seriously? Neither of you laughed. Never mind.
I'm not giving that to you.
Boo. Georgia Tech Golf put out Christo Lamprecht's full 2023 award slate. First team, National All-American, All-ACC, won the ACC championship, NCAA championship runner-up, womp womp, Arnold Palmer Cup international team member, amateur champion, low am at the Open Championship. So it is a stacked trophy case, and I think he still has 1 year left, right? And he'll play the Masters and the U.S. Open next year as an amateur.
Are you going to seriously talk us through this President Ángel Cabrera letter here in a sec, and not know that he explicitly said this in the letter that you want to talk about? I'm not.
I read the letter. I read the letter, but it was also a while ago when I clipped out the quotes that I wanted to talk about. So now that you've mentioned the letter, let's talk about it. Earlier today, President Ángel Cabrera put out his monthly newsletter. This one was a lot more athletics focused, obviously, because Chris Eubanks at Wimbledon earlier this month, and also Christo Lamprecht to tail off the month. And Cabrera made a lot of points that we sort of batted around in our writer's room about the marketing ability of moments like these, where you have Georgia Tech graduates or Georgia Tech students, in Christo's case, going out and doing big things on international television in a sporting sense. And and we're not talking about sports like football or basketball that are really big in the US. We're talking about Wimbledon. We're talking about the British Open or the Open or whatever. Look, not a golf person, but you get what I'm saying. These are massive international events. They are on TV internationally. And he said, these are really good opportunities for people to know about Georgia Tech via an athletic context. Maybe not it's just an avenue for them to learn about the school that they may not have had before. Right. So a couple of pull quotes that I wanted to mention before we actually dig into this a little bit. Straight from the letter, Chris's unbelievable run at Wimbledon made us all proud and highlighted one of my favorite things about Georgia Tech, that one of the world's finest research universities also has a rich storied tradition of athletic excellence. Let's actually start there because, Jake, I think this is something that we mentioned when we did our big opus on the context of Georgia Tech last October. It's that kind of confluence of athletic excellence, as President Cabrera described it, and the high-powered, very famous research capabilities of the institution. Like that's not really a combination that you see all the time.
And the combination of, primary focus in major metropolitan area, no less. Like it's got just about everything going for it that you could want in terms of athletic, academic, front doorness. We've literally taken whole podcast to discuss the ivory tower versus integration into the community. But the more Georgia Tech can be not only integrated into the community and a great steward of the resources that we've been given, whether that's location, what the state does give us, or funding that we get from other places. Like that's how you get, it's like a success begets success thing. It's something that, and not to kick the can too far down to the end of the episode, but it's something that your schools that are state schools that are not second fiddle, but not the top priority for some, or at least historically in the state, a la your Louisville, your Georgia Tech, your I'm trying to think of another good, maybe UIC in Chicago comes to mind. Clemson, yeah, these schools that are a lot of your whatever state versus their original counterpart, if you will, Michigan State versus Michigan. It's something that the non-flagship has to grapple with, and I think it's something that makes whatever way we can get in front of people's eyes and show them, to communicate to our stakeholders, to our state constituents, hey, what Georgia Tech is doing is valuable. Sports are such a huge part of what brings people in, and just shows them that value on top of, and we'll get to this in a bit, it being a front door for more access, or even the potential students that you're getting as well. I'm a student that's here in part because of the athletics that I was exposed to, right? Like that's how you get students. It's how you get, and especially students who may not attend your university if they're not on that sports team too. That's a completely another thing. And you're pitching a big tent, and I think that's a really powerful message.
Taking that front door comment in context, I think, is important in this specific context, right? Because we talked about how President Cabrera is talking about this idea of athletics as a front door within the context of international sports, right?
Yeah,
tennis,
definitely,
and golf, and it sounds like copium to an extent, and I put that in our shot sheet too. But there's life beyond those revenue sports as the front door, and I think, Jack, you've seen it in your experience with the women's basketball team too, covering them. Yeah. And that is and the volleyball team, while I mention it too, mm-hmm. Those are two widely international programs. And Jake mentioning, swimming and diving too.
Yeah, definitely them.
You have three very highly international programs on campus. And it just makes me think, right? There's so much more to life than using those revenue sports as the end all be all, right? Yeah, as the end all be all for how you market the university. And I think this comes back to a lot of what we've been saying, right, Jack?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I want to also caveat that the broadcasts we get in the States are not the same that other countries will get. Like for the Open specifically, the American broadcast is not the same as what the BBC or whoever, Sky or Sports or whatever, or what gets broadcast around the world. Some countries use the American NBC feed, some don't, whatever. And for Wimbledon as well, the ESPN feed, the Chris Fowler, Chrissy Everett broadcast of those matches is not the same that goes international. But in both of those cases, they were very persistent to note the fact that a guy from Georgia Tech was doing something cool and unexpected as well. Like as strong as the individual athlete between Chris and Christo's image was this is a guy from Georgia Tech. Like a lot, like who was it? Brad Gilbert could not stop saying the Rambling Wreck is doing great out here. Like he just, it's just a fun thing to say. Like I would say it too. And Mike Tirico multiple times when talking about Christo and updating people as they're waking up to the broadcast, like, oh yeah, the Jackets are 1-2 here. Like it wasn't that two Americans, or no, I guess Christo's not American. It wasn't that there was an amateur and Stuart Sink at the top of the leaderboard, a really young dude and a really old dude in golf terms. It was there's two Yellow Jackets leading this tournament, which is super ironic with what happened at the end. But Cabrera's talked about, when I talked with Cabrera a year ago, like he mentioned, like, yeah, getting these TV spots is as big of a deal as anything in terms of branding Georgia Tech. People see that. And the fact that the broadcast went out of their way to mention this is a Georgia Tech thing that's happening right now is huge. Like, that's not normal for just how that goes.
And I think just kind of on a theme that I asked Joey about a couple weeks ago, I mentioned last week, like, it helps those of us that are already here too, of just like, hey, like we preach hey, check out volleyball. Look at what they're doing. Hey,
right.
Softball, women's basketball. Hey, this is what golf and men's swimming and diving are doing,
yeah,
sports that are top 25. I mean, men's swimming and diving finished ranked. You don't hear much about that, but between golf's late run, on top of inarguably disappointing baseball and softball seasons from Tech, kind of push things in the right direction. And then you're seeing, hey, like, look, remember this good thing? It kind of helps us, at least as I get further away as an alumni, like stay plugged in and in tune with what Tech is doing. And I think that's,
Yeah, we're getting the more, by this happening, people are getting the more comprehensive story of what Georgia Tech athletics is beyond just the main stuff of football and basketball. Like, I mean, Kevin King was wearing Tech stuff. Every camera shot he got in the player's box for Chris Eubanks.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing.
And I respect it.
It's awesome.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
Dude put every Tech shirt that he could fit into that carry-on and walked onto the plane.
That's not.
I hope they sent him some stuff. If they did not send him some stuff, I would be disappointed.
I hope, and the thing is, like, I think
he's a coach,
and like,
of course,
I mean, yes, Chris is some time out of his, like, some years graduated away from Tech, but like, and also he came back, like, he's been training at Tech before the Atlanta Open too. Like, he's on campus.
He lives here still, doesn't he?
Yeah, he is very much like, he's gonna be like, if he doesn't get walked out at a football game, I'll be bad. Like, that's gonna happen. Christo probably as well. So I mean, I hope other teams take notes. Like, hey, if your guy's doing well, send your people gear. Like, that's a massive marketing opportunity that isn't usually taken advantage of. Like, people in players' boxes also usually, like, aren't. I mean, it is varying things. A lot of them are international. It's not like the college university system is huge. But, like, for the Americans, yeah, get your plugs in. Like, that's free TV right there.
And as much as I love the retro apparel and the unique logos and stuff, it helps to see Kevin there just in a really big GT,
Yeah. No, that's
the role right there.
We're going to talk about it in a second too, more about just the interlocking GT, but that's the symbol. And I think that's partly why the institute shifted to that as the official logo as well, because that interlocking GT is always going to be the icon that will resonate most with the institute. As much as the Campanile seal was cool and the spire and all that, it's the interlocking GT. That's Tech.
I mean, I've told my story here before, right? I didn't know what the 3 spike thing was. Like, it's so much more obvious.
Yeah. It's a lot better. It makes sense. It's simple. It works on any piece of clothing or any little design thing. It looks cool. So that's how it is.
Agreed.
It also fits well onto the nice display of the school's name on the side of North Avenue Apartments, where it has just been installed this past weekend. Usually when you drive on the connector and pass North Avenue Apartments, you will see Georgia Institute of Technology and then the old style gear seal. As of this weekend, you will see the interlocking GT, and I believe the new square rectangle GT, and then the title of the school thing also on one of the sides. Anyway, not important, but yes, the interlocking
that's
GT.
On the hotel. You see that going north as well.
Yeah, that's on the hotel. That was the new part of the
Still
hotel.
Driving on the connector. It counts. Technically, it counts. But Jake and I guess, have been in Atlanta for a very long time, and started school when everything was about the seal and all the branding was disparate. And honestly, the old man in me kind of liked the seal.
Well, also
on the side of the apartment.
Let's keep in mind there isn't any like visible. Like that's the most visible tech building on the connector, and the branding that this is Georgia Tech was not inherently obvious.
No,
yes, I will cop to that.
That thing is very bright. You can see it from a long way away as long as you're looking at it.
They packed that thing with LEDs,
That
man.
thing has got some lumens,
You could
buddy.
see.
It's got some lumens.
You're going to be able to see that from coming, honestly.
Yeah. Yes.
It's pointed towards Decatur, but the point stands.
Yes.
I was going to say one other thing. There's also a new seal. Like they refreshed the seal. As much as someone could do that, that's a little weird to me as a concept. But so that was gonna, I guess, get replaced. The only other spot that comes to mind with obviously old branding is the north end of O'Keefe. They did not replace the Campanile Delio and bold Georgia Institute of Technology. But that's not as visible as a spot as North Ave, and obviously we assume that at some point they're gonna do more work to O'Keefe, so it's probably a TBD.
But yeah, again, Tech understands the branding that needs to be happening now, and modernizing it well. So yeah, this is cool to see. That makes me hopeful, and just in terms of things are headed in the right direction in terms of what's going on in the rooms.
Speaking of modernization and change, I think we've got a couple personnel moves. Akshay, is that right?
Yes. Softball has had a couple of moves in their coaching staff. Two new coaches, Kelsey Bennett formerly of Virginia Tech, actually an extremely recent grad, which makes me feel very old. She'll be taking over, I think, as one of the assistant coaches. I'm looking for the press release right now to make sure I get the exact position right. Yes, she is listed as an assistant. She will, it doesn't say specifically, but she will be competing in the inaugural season of the WPF Women's Pro Fast Pitch through August, and then she will head over to Georgia Tech for the fall season. Hunter Bunch is the other coach coming to Georgia Tech. He is formerly of Incarnate Word. He will be taking over as the hitting coach and also working with the outfield. So a couple of notes from his profile on RamblingWreck.com. He was a travel ball head coach in Texas, I believe with the Texas Bombers from 2019 to 2021, and then got hired at Incarnate Word. It looks like during his time there, before he was head coach, he was also an assistant coach, and most notably for me, the director of analytics, however much you can use analytics at a travel ball program, which I guess you could. I don't know.
They play a lot of games. Not to spoil the interview we've got, but we talk about that just a little bit. I think it's good that he's in the travel ball circuit too. That's always good to have connections, kind of like how Coach Brent Key talks about recruiting and some of the moves he's made in terms of building out his football recruiting apparatus. So that's it doesn't hurt to go where the players are. So.
Couple of notes that come off of this too. Reese Maricondo is no longer listed on the roster sheet or the coaching staff sheet on Tech's website. Allison February, who was one of the assistants last year, also no longer listed as an assistant. Really, officially on the actual sheet, it's just head coach Eileen Morales and pitching coach Marty McDaniel, and now these other two coaches. So. We'll probably follow up on that and see if we can get some more information, but that is kind of where we're at right now. So I think that is just about it before our interview, gents. Any other news and notes?
Yeah, the volleyball schedule is out. We got a lot to get down to with this interview tonight, so we will talk about that maybe next week. We'll see, but it's a good one.
We were told explicitly not to do a schedule reading, but I assume we will do that anyway.
Oh yeah, we will do the true tradition from the Rumble seat and read schedules.
Now for our interview of the week, Mr. Grant. Why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah, so this is a fun one, one that we've kind of had on our radar for a minute. Not gonna lie, Maddi, Given the fact that I've traveled up to Louisville, that you've come down here for games, you've come up before on the podcast, but we're pleased to introduce today my sister, Maddi Grant, of Louisville softball, here to talk about the life and times of being a college athlete, kind of with a different perspective than probably we usually get in terms of, talking to somebody who's not necessarily Georgia Tech or not necessarily Atlanta based, but a little bit of a different perspective. And Maddi, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to start with some basic questions so our audience gets to know you, but given the fact that I co-host this podcast, they definitely know the first one. So where are you from?
Well, I am from River Forest, a suburb right outside of Chicago, if you didn't know that.
Most people don't, I've found.
Yeah, it's a pretty small town. But Oak Park, I feel like a lot of people know Oak Park. Like people here in Louisville, I mention Oak Park and they're like, no way, like I know where that is. It's crazy.
It's weird when people recognize it too, because they have the Frank Lloyd Wright connection and all that. But usually I just say Oak Park or Chicago. So Louisville softball. What year are you in school? How long have you been down there?
I'm gonna be a junior. So obviously my third year. I studied biology here. I actually came in as an engineering major, undecided. But I realized right away, not because it's like necessarily the classes were hard right away, just like there was a lot of conflict with like my softball schedule. Like I knew it maybe wasn't gonna work out. It was gonna be really hard. Like not a lot of athletes do engineering. But if they do, like respect, that's really, really hard. So
that's the same. That's the same here too. Like there are some that go for it. Some go as far as do like biochemistry and like chemists do the crazy hard sciences, but they're not many of them. Like a lot of them are finding the social studies and the business stuff because they can manage both at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so changing to bio, obviously it sounds like it works better with softball. Do you have any idea what you're going to do with it after college? Does it fit into those plans a little bit better?
Yeah, I'm actually leaning towards going into pharmacy school. So that's like an extra 4 years. I have a teammate. She actually just graduated. She's going to pharmacy school next year. And she kind of invited me into the pre-pharmacy club at Louisville. And so that's kind of what made me a little more interested into going into that route. And I actually work with her right now at a pharmacy. So it's pretty cool. I really like it.
So that's clearly something you didn't have on your mind when you were in high school and stuff like that. If you were doing engineering stuff, for those of us out there who, we readily admit we don't follow a ton of recruiting. It's kind of a big black box. It's rough and tumble world out there. That's just life, right? But we do want to ask a little bit about recruitment for, softball and your experience. When did you get a sense that you wanted to play in college, that you had a shot of doing that? Because, a lot of people dream, but few actually get to do it. So
let's go way back to when I started playing travel ball, actually, when I was 9. I kind of started to get a sense that I wanted to play in college when I was about 12, so pretty young.
Yeah.
So that was like 7th grade, I'd say. That's when I started going to like a bunch of camps, literally like every weekend in the winter when we weren't in season. And then when we were in season, I still did some camps like at tournaments. It was crazy. But yeah, when I was 12, I believed I can play in college and I made it, so it's a dream come true.
Fair enough. Did you do anything that like changed your like habits or over time? Did that change? Stuff like that. What? You talked a little bit about going to a lot of tournaments and stuff, but what did that day-to-day look like for you?
Well, a big thing for me and any athlete that wants to go play in college is to get stronger. So I started working out with a trainer every day after school. I'd say that's the most important thing, just to get stronger. I was actually a swimmer my whole life too. So when things started getting serious, I kind of not really like gave up on swimming. It was just kind of like more in the background. And then in high school, I decided to not swim anymore just so I could focus on softball. I also switched organizations just so I can get more exposure and just go to those bigger tournaments. And that's what you kind of got to do. Like the more chances you get in front of coaches, like in person, just the better it is. That kind of ties into like COVID. That was really, really hard, not just for me, but for everyone. Coaches, there was a rule where coaches, obviously they couldn't come to tournaments because of COVID, but
yeah,
we still live streamed and all of that. But that's just, it definitely just wasn't the same because they couldn't see everything that you would see in person. Like
it's like a 2-year gap in being able to evaluate talent from the coach side too, at least in person. 1 to 3, depending on where you're at.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
How many games at most before COVID were you playing a year?
Travel ball or high school, are you saying?
All of the above.
All of the above. High school, I'd say we'd play about 40 games, I'd say. But then in the summer, definitely like 150, something around that, somewhere in the hundreds. It's crazy because like sometimes we'd have like 5 games a day. Like it'd be all day long.
Jeez.
On a Saturday in the middle of the summer. It's crazy.
I don't think I ever played more than 3 baseball games in a day. I
had 3 water polo games once in a day. That was pretty terrible.
That sounds awful.
Right,
that sounds awful.
It was not fun. It was aggressively not fun. But
now thinking about it, I have no idea how we did that. Like 1 or 2 games now is literally so tiring, like on my body and all that.
Well, even I got reached out to by a current tech student asking to do an interview with some historian, which I guess, I've got some chops in about some tech history stuff. And he was asking me some of my background. And I kind of made a reference to, like in college, like it was weird to wake up for tech traditions. Freshman cake race happens on homecoming, all this to the side. I was like, yeah, like I hadn't gotten that up that early since high school. And you think about stuff that you do when you're 13, 14, 17 years old, and it's like up at, 5, 6, probably earlier, almost every day, if not every day, you're, going to school for longer than you're in school when you're in college. And some folks work too and all that. It's pretty different. And I got to imagine just like having not a black hole in the middle of that experience, but you lost 2 years of that had to have been interesting, not just on the softball diamond, but also for like classes and staying sharp out for the academic side too, right?
Yeah, my junior year in high school, our second semester was canceled basically because of COVID, and we didn't have a season that year, so I only played 3 years in high school, which is kind of sad, but it was fun while it lasted.
That's fair. So again, some perspective. Obviously, we go way back and have a lot of shared experiences. I'm going to have to grapple in 3 years with my high school pool being knocked down. It's 100 years old. It's got to go, but it's still going to be weird. What's it like having, a field that you played, hundreds of games on and practice on every day, just being a big hole in the ground? It doesn't exist anymore. What's that like?
It's kind of sad because I don't know. We had so much fun on that field. I remember freshman year when I was the youngest on the team and just how they welcomed me and just all the fun. It was so much fun. I miss everyone on that team, but I actually haven't even seen a picture of it yet.
It's a big hole in the ground. Yeah.
It's an actual hole. Oh my! Yeah. I want to see it. I haven't seen it.
I'll send you something later. I got your number.
Right.
The thing that comes to mind there's I mean I've got strong place association with swim meets and trips we've done for that. Heck, I mean, Jack, that's how we met, right? Yeah, was going to Auburn, and I think about that almost all the time. So, guys, you got anything else on the pre-college before we move on?
Yeah. So if you weren't playing that senior year, I assume you had to have been already on the collegiate radar by the end of your junior season and had some leads there of just with some people at some schools, whether or not, I mean, I assume Louisville was on track, but at that point you had somewhat of a list forming in your head by that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't play junior year, but high school softball is kind of different than high school baseball. where I feel like baseball, it's more serious, I guess. Like that's where all the recruiting is. But for softball, it's mostly just travel ball.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
yeah. Going into the summer before senior year, no coaches could come out. People were still looking at me. Oh, also for softball, I don't know what the rule is. Coaches can't talk to us until September 1st of our junior year.
Okay.
And so that makes it harder, like as is. And then COVID made it even harder. And yeah, so all of our games that summer before my senior year, they were just all live streamed. And yeah, I started getting recruited by Louisville that summer. And then I committed in the fall of my senior year, which is kind of late.
Yeah, it seems late.
For most people, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you talk about the junior year being late, and I definitely knew a couple, I think girls in particular, because Oak Park was real good at swimming on the girls' side when I was in school. But they had like coaches talking to them when they're in like 7th grade. So 10, 12 years ago, like I can't imagine being a 12-year-old and having to, be thinking about where you're going to college. Like there were kids that I knew in 8th grade that didn't even know where they're going to pick for going to high school, whether it was, public, private, or charter type deal. So that's probably a lot.
Do you not remember Lane Kiffin offering like a 9th grader? No, like a 7th grader a scholarship when he was at a USC.
Yeah, he offered a 12-year-old a scholarship. Yeah.
Yeah, he knows where he's going to school.
It's a 40-year decision, right?
Yes.
So you said, obviously the rest is history, committing to Louisville and all that. We know you're there. What's something you love about the city or drew you to the city or the campus, or, what's moving down there been like?
Mm-hmm. Well, since I am from Chicago, technically, I just like being next to a busy city and lots of people. But the campus, I really like how small it is. Like I wasn't expecting it to be as small as it is. It's very walkable. You don't need a car at all. You can walk to from like each corner of the campus. I think the walk would only be like 10 minutes, maybe 15. So going from practice or lift in the morning to class, like there's no worry there. Like sometimes I'd have class like 30 minutes after lift and I'd have to change and all that, but I'd make it to class in time. So yeah, it's very walkable. I love that. And yeah, I just like the community, the sports community, the athlete community. There's a lot of support for the athletes here, which is awesome. And yeah, I really like it here.
I was astonished when I walked through your guys' student center the first time I visited campus, and just how like Louisville, it felt like. Obviously, you're in the city of Louisville, you see some of the imagery and stuff like that, but nothing against Georgia Tech, but at least before they renovated our student center, like you didn't like, there's not a lot of white and gold, but a lot of red and black at Louisville. Not that that's usually smiled upon on this podcast, but that was pretty neat to see. And of course the fans turned out really well that weekend too. So
yeah, there's definitely a lot of spirit here and a lot of fans that are just in town, a lot of support for all the sports. And yeah, it's like a small like family, like everyone that's from around Louisville. Yeah, I like it.
You guys are the big game in town too, right? Like there's no pro. I mean, I guess you got the pro NWSL team, right? But
there's the annual horse race, and yeah, like that's it. I'm looking at the map now because I've noted every time I fly to Chicago, I do like looking over because usually the flight route takes us over Louisville. So if it's daylight outside, I'm able to see the row of everything from the football stadium, and all the fields are back to back to back to back along the whole way there, which that was always cool to me to see that, just how all cohesive it is and how very in your face, I guess it is along the highway. I think Texas does a kind of similar thing from when I lived in Austin for a hot sec.
Yeah, it's a whole strip of all the sports. I like it.
Yeah, I also didn't realize that the Churchill Downs was really just right there. I don't know how I missed that, but yeah.
Yes.
You could throw Lamar Jackson only needs 2 or 3 football throws, and he's got from the stadium to the horse track.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have a favorite like restaurant or spot to hang out if you're not in class or working out and playing games and traveling and all that?
That's a hard one because there's a lot of good food here in Louisville, but I'd say for like more of a college type restaurant that's right there off of campus, I'd say the Tav is what we called. Wait, I don't know what the original name is because we keep on calling it the Tab. I think it's just old Louisville Tavern. My bad.
Okay.
It's really good. I'd go for the grilled chicken sandwich with the ranch. It's homemade. Super good. Their fries, they changed, but they're so good. I really like them. And then the chicken tender basket.
I saw a giant exclamation pop up among all three of our heads because Cypress, which is our like little off campus bar, changed their fries, and I don't think I will ever hear the end of that from anyone that I know that goes there regularly.
They're still great.
At least the house beer is $3 again.
Yeah, they changed that for a minute too, and that would have been
No. They changed the house Pilsner price. The house IPA was the same price. One is more riotable than the other.
Well, I was just saying they moved the Pilsner price back.
I was going to say, Akshay, on this podcast, we support the Pilsner, but that's another podcast topic. We'll say it out loud if they sponsor us, Jack. Walk us through a typical like game week schedule. There's a lot that we could go here. Obviously, a normal week is just a normal week, but what does that look like if you're going to be like traveling on the weekend, or even if you're home for 3 days at the end of the week?
Should we specify this is an in-season week we're talking about and not a fall season week?
We can talk about that too if you want to talk about
or both,
fall.
whatever.
This is an open-ended question.
We can talk about both.
Sure.
They're very different.
Yes, let's do both then.
So the fall, obviously, not in season. Very relaxed. Very relaxed. We usually start practicing the second week of school, so we get a whole week to just like reconvene and like get adjusted to classes and all that. And then we start in like small groups, like not team practice yet. Then we get to team practice and we start playing games here and there. It's not like a bunch of games like in season. And we usually just play schools that are from around here, like Eastern Kentucky, UK, Bellarmine, which is a local D1 here. But yeah, we still prep for fall. We still scout the pitchers for the teams we're going to play. We do all that. And then the spring, usually, at the beginning of the season in the spring, we usually just have tournaments. It's not ACC play.
Right.
Yeah, and that's usually a lot more games than we would have during ACC play. So we'd usually leave a little earlier in the week, I'd say Wednesday, and then play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come back Sunday. But yeah, we scout the pitchers for every team, watch film. Yeah, we do that all the days leading up to when we leave. And it's like very in-depth. I don't know if I should talk about it a lot, but
you don't have to spill any state secrets. No.
Yeah, we just make sure we're prepared, and there's a lot of tools to allow us to do that. And then going into ACC play, we usually leave on Thursday and have a game Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So 3 games. And it's crazy when we have 2 or 3 weekends in a row of us traveling. Like, It's crazy. We get back Sundays at around midnight and like go to bed at like 1 a.m. and then we're off Mondays. We have to have a day off. Practice Tuesday, Wednesday, leave Thursday, practice that night, and then play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, off, practice, leave again. It's crazy. It gets crazy. But it's so much fun.
That's the plight of the cold weather team too, right? Having to get on a plane and go places that first 3-4 weeks of the season. Yeah.
Yes. It's very nice to get to those warm places like Florida and Atlanta.
It do be, hey, as long as it's not the random March weekend where it goes back down to 45, you're okay.
You got a little bit of that this year. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, there was.
I
still got sunburned. What the heck?
You mentioned that you're scouting in the fall before it even gets to the season. Do you guys like? I mean, if maybe I go too far, you can't answer this. But like, I assume you go through as many pitchers as you can get through in that off-season time. And I guess you go. I guess Blake's not a tech anymore, so I assume you would have looked at Blake Nelliman's tape at some point, and then once it got closer to the game date, like actually, then you revisit what y'all initially jotted down or thought about in the fall.
Yeah, usually we're more in depth at first, and then we try to get to each pitcher and like really nail down what their pitches look like and their sequences, I guess, and just what their routine is. And then when it gets closer to game time, that should just be a review, and we should already know what we're doing, and what we're hunting at during our at bats and such. We also obviously scout for their hitters too, for defense, and this is what all D1 schools do too. The more prepared you are, the more ready you are when the game starts, obviously. So
when you get past scouting and stuff, and this is why I'm not about to ask this, you get into data and analytics and all that tracking, and I know it is killing Akshay to not know more about what teams do, but I think we should probably leave it there so we don't get too into the weeds, because I mean that's stuff that starts to border.
This is where I might have had
proprietary stuff.
I might have a cool question here, because in softball I've noticed more than any of the ball sports that everyone has the wristband that's like super color coded and all that kind of stuff. As much as you can say, I assume that's like basically your game plan on the wristband for whatever situation you may need to go to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's usually something on a wristband for defense, just saying what the other players are, like what their game is when they're hitting, and then we usually have something for offense. And I personally like wearing it because it looks cool. So
look good, play good, right? That's
yes,
half the battle. Speaking of like play good stuff, are there things that you do, especially when you're busy in the spring, that you're doing to recover, whether that's, staying sharp mentally, classes, like, I mean, you've got 2 rounds of this under your belt. Like what's some stuff you learned to be in game, class, life, shape?
Yeah, definitely rehab is very, very important, even though it seems like you don't have the time for that. You honestly got to just make time for rehab. Even if you don't feel like you're off or your body's tired, you probably are going to feel it sometime soon. Like your body gets tired in season, and that is, I'm not exaggerating. So rehab is crucial for anyone, no matter what position you are, pitcher, catcher, whatever. Rehab is crucial. Also, sleep is very important. Like I said, we get back really late on Sundays, and we play at least 3 games a weekend, more if it's the beginning of the season when we're playing tournaments. So sleep is very, very important, and eating the right foods is very important. And it can be hard when you're traveling to eat the right food, and then coming back late at night and nothing's open. It can be really, really hard. So just kind of like preparing for that, and maybe even prepping before the season starts, and just like getting a game plan with, I don't know, your diet and your sleep, and then schoolwork. Staying on top of that is very crucial too, because you can get very behind traveling. I was in this last semester in the spring, I was in this bio class, cellular and molecular biology, and it was an evening class. That was my first evening class. I try to make sure all my classes are like earlier in the day so it doesn't conflict with practice, but that was like the only option for that class. And I missed class so much because we were traveling, and it was a Tuesday, Thursday class in the evening, and we leave Thursday, like every Thursday, when we're away. So I missed so many classes, but just like communicating with the professors, it's very important, and usually they understand, so that's really nice.
Kind of taking a left turn back towards the, obviously understanding professors, but the community. Do you have a favorite part about playing at Ulmer specifically?
I really love the food we get, pregame food, especially if it's a morning game. The breakfast is so good. We switch between like getting catering from 2 places, maybe there might be 3 places, I don't know. But my favorite thing we get is the cheesy potatoes. They're so fire. But then, oh my gosh, how am I forgetting hacky? We always play hacky before the game, just in the outfield, like as a warm up. You gotta get your legs warm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We did that playing water polo. Yeah.
Tech does that too. I've seen him do that pretty regularly. Even between innings sometimes, I think too, if they can. Like they'll just you got a minute, like you may as well.
Mm-hmm. Also,
go ahead.
Also, I don't know who started it, but I think our hitting coach brought a football one day and just left it in the like closet or something. So some of us started just playing catch with the football when we had some downtime. It was so fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Too loose, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're running routes and everything.
That's fun. Do you have we talked about like some team traditions. Are there anything like the stadium or the like people who put on the game or maybe the fans or something like that? Like is there like a tradition or an aspect of the stadium that is cool on game days that you like?
Mm-hmm. One thing that comes to mind is I love when someone hits a home run and it's a night game, as they're running around the bases, they flash the lights, and it's just like such a cool.
That's cool.
It's so cool, and I don't know, everyone loves it, and like I feel like the crowd loves it too. And then something else that comes to my mind is when usually we do this every home game, I feel like, or maybe once a weekend. We bring like travel ball, like younger kids onto the field.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
Yeah, we just talk to them before the game, and sometimes they want our autographs, and then they stand next to us on the line when we do the national anthem. So
that's nice.
I do have one question that Akshay is going to also appreciate. How do y'all pick your uniforms for each game?
Oh, pick. Actually, we don't really get a say in that. Like our equipment manager usually like picks the combos, but if we don't like one, we make sure it never happens again.
Okay, that's good. At least you got some say. That's good. That's good.
Yes.
I'm a little biased, but I think you guys have some of the best combos in the ACC, especially with all the great alternates and stuff. It's always interesting seeing what they pull together. But yeah,
do you have a favorite in mind?
I'm a sucker for the Gothic L. That was the Louisville hat. That was the first Louisville thing that I bought myself when you became a Louisville person. It was the old school L, but I think that speaks to me being an old soul for, baseball, softball, stickball type sports. So yeah, usually that. I'm also somebody who loves the full color rush, but this is Akshay used to have a column on this website called Akshay, what was the title?
You know the title.
I know what it is.
I'm not saying it. I'm not gonna say it. You say it.
The Akshay eye for the uniform guy. Oh, yeah.
That's incredible.
It was a good column.
It was a good column.
No regrets.
Yeah, no.
I have always liked Louisville's color scheme because I mean, red and black is only good for me because the Falcons exist, but I do like how y'all effectively use gray as well, and it's not easy for teams to use gray well. I think more in this Tech has tried, and it's not good when we tried at all because
I like it. Your softball team has a nice like.
They didn't do gray this year, thankfully. Some of our other sports have tried to do gray to meander.
The football gray is bad. I dislike the football gray.
Football gray
a
is
lot.
bad. Basketball has been questionable to okay. But they have
the difference with baseball and softball is road grays are like a thing, So
road
I don't mind the
thing.
baseball softball road gray.
Yeah, it's good. I'm looking right now at one of y'all's sets. Is the white top with the red pants, and it's just solid. It's solid.
Okay.
The only thing that comes to mind here, but before I let you
say what I'm
back in,
thinking, but
let's find out together. The only thing I have to say here is that I feel like I remember Louisville softball wearing the Tequila Sunrise.
That is what I was going to say.
That's baseball, actually.
That's baseball.
Yeah.
They don't. The softball doesn't have that combination.
Nope.
I would kill for a Grant Tequila Sunrise Louisville jersey. Oh my goodness,
that's good.
I know you've been wanting that. You've mentioned it, and don't worry, I'm on the lookout. I'm on the lookout.
One thing about Ulmer that resonated with me as a first time goer was the Sunday, the crowd you guys got that was so big it was sitting on the like grassy berm. But I'm a sucker for sitting on the grassy berm. I didn't want to forget to mention that, but that was cool. A
grassy berm at a ballpark feels necessary. Like I wish more big stadiums did that. That was my favorite part. The one time I went to spring training for the Braves, it's like you had that. That feels right whenever it's there.
It's a day out in the sun,
Yeah.
We do have some tech-related questions because this is a Georgia Tech podcast, so got to get a couple in. What was it like playing in Atlanta as a visiting player? Like, was it what was it like just coming down here and playing at Newborn?
Well, I've been to Atlanta many times to visit you, Jake. So it was nothing really new. It was cool to be with my team though, with all the people I love. And I absolutely love your field and then the pencil building in the background. But we didn't get to play. Is that what it's called? The pencil building?
Yep, you're right. Yep.
Not officially. It's the Bank of America Tower, but everyone calls it.
It's the pencil building. No one calls it the actual name.
It's the pencil building.
I just wish we played at night and then that was in the background. Oh my gosh, that would be so pretty.
Is there anything different specifically about coming to a very large metro area versus some of the smaller towns in the ACC, like Durham or Chapel Hill or places like that?
Durham's got like 400,000 people. You should probably say Clemson, Jack, or Blacksburg.
No. I'll allow it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Honestly, those like kind of smaller town schools, their fan base is usually bumping. Like obviously Clemson is gonna have a giant fan base and they're in the middle of nowhere, low key.
Yeah, they are. You're right.
High key.
Low key.
High key. You pass Clemson and there's nothing for miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not much of a difference, honestly.
Do you have a favorite? Like you said, you've been to Atlanta a bunch, obviously. Do you have a favorite like spot that you've been to when you're here? It doesn't have to be like food, but it could be food or like a thing you've done, around town.
He's walking you right into the Cypress answer. Don't fall for it.
No, don't. No. Yeah.
Oh, what do you want me to say? Oh, what's that area with the Ferris wheel and it's that giant park?
Centennial Olympic Park.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We went there as a team in the spring. That was pretty cool.
That's cool.
My favorite restaurant, I don't even know what the name of it is, but it was the best appetizer I've ever had. Like, it's pretty plain and simple, but it was so good. It was like a big ball of cheese. And I don't know, when you cut into it, it kind of like melted, but then you had bread and you could put the cheese on the bread and like olive oil. I don't know what it was called. And
was this when you were in town last time or a different time?
It was a couple years ago and I was with mom. Wait.
Was I there?
No. But I talked to her about it recently and she was like, oh, I remember that place, but we have no idea what the name is. It's like a small place.
A melting ball of cheese, hole in the wall, small restaurant.
I've never had a dish like that here ever.
Maybe was it near Tech's campus or were you away?
No, it was pretty far away.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I know who would know, and I can
anything.
ask her afterwards. It's not mom. The more you know. This will be good for next week's podcast because we have no sports to talk about next week, so I'll have to do some research.
There you go.
Jake, when I think of like visiting you there at Georgia Tech when you were a student, I keep thinking of that time you had that engineering project in that one building at night with like the robots. I thought that was so cool. And watching from like the sides, like way up high, like that was so cool.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
So I actually judged the competition, the ME 2110 competition this spring. I went over that. That was cool to go back. And actually yesterday I got brunch with my old 2110 group. Small world, but yeah, no, that's one of the cooler experiences of Georgia Tech competitive engineering. That's for sure. Yeah, I think that kind of talks us into a corner on Atlanta stuff. Jack, Akshay, do you have anything else?
I feel like I'll have more questions next time y'all come play down here, and hopefully I can be at the game. And
you better be there.
I will.
I made them all dressed in red and black for those games, so that. So
we will be there in the spring.
Oh, you're coming back in the spring?
Yeah, because we were off last. Okay, so there's like a rotation.
Oh, the rotation. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. They came to us
Cool.
my freshman year.
Yeah. I thought you meant you were coming back to the ACC Big Ten Challenge, and I was like, that's not public news yet. But the rotation, I mean, you can kind of figure it out if you please piece
that's
it all
predictable.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'll have to go find more hole in the wall restaurants and things like that. So speaking of, we talked a little bit about pro teams earlier. Louisville doesn't have a lot. Do you have a favorite team that you tune into, whether it's softball, baseball, could be other sports? Like when you consume sports for fun, who are you watching?
Honestly, I haven't been watching a lot of sports recently, but when I do, it's probably just the Chicago White Sox, even though they haven't been doing the best, which is a little sad.
They took 2 or 3 from the Braves. I was not happy about that.
I was at the one where the Braves won 9-0. That was all right. I did enjoy kind of, being like, but I'm not really a Braves guy either. So I feel you on that. Akshay, I know you had one that you wanted to get in about professional softball in particular.
Oh, yes. We've seen a bunch of athletes go straight from the Women's College World Series, and then within a month they're playing in either Women's Pro Fast Pitch or Athletes Unlimited. What is your exposure to that? What has do you have any teammates that have gone into that? Like, what does that ecosystem look like from a pro softball perspective?
Well, it's grown a lot in the past couple of years. Same with just college softball in general. Like, we have gained a lot of fans, and that is awesome to see. We just had someone graduate, Taylor Roby. She is now playing on the USSSA Pride professional team. And then Carmen Greenwood, who I played with my freshman year, she's still playing for the Florida Vibe. And then, Hannah File, she just graduated too. She's actually, she's in Europe, Germany, I think, playing in a league over there. So a lot of people from Louisville have gone pro, which is really, really awesome to see. And I'm sure a lot more will go in the future. We have a lot of great people on the team right now.
For our listeners who aren't familiar, Taylor Roby, the GOAT, but yeah.
Yes.
Is there anything that Louisville, maybe teammates you played with in the past that are doing cool things off the field that Louisville opened the door for me to do this or something like that?
Celine Funk, I didn't get to play with her. She graduated right before I came. I know she's doing very well in business right now. And then we had someone that was actually in the School of Dentistry while she was playing. That's ridiculous. And now she's a dentist.
That's cool.
Yes. We have very smart people on our team. Someone right now just took her MCAT and she did very well. So she's going to go to medical school. We have someone going to pharmacy school in the fall. So it's a very determined bunch of girls. And yeah, we put our studies in classes first, which it should be, but softball is right up there too. But yeah, academics is very important to us and just holding each other accountable.
I was going to say, shame on us for not even mentioning, and you went to the NCAAs this year, so it's not like you had a slouch of a year by any means. What was that like?
It was awesome, actually. Just hearing our school name called on TV, on national TV. That was really cool. We were all so excited. We were screaming. We were like, no way. And then when we were playing Indiana, we were like, let's go. Even though we've played them so many times, it was just, it was awesome because we kind of have a little rivalry, I think. But
they're not that far from you guys.
They're not.
No, they're not. An hour and a half.
I do ask some players and coaches what I talk to them about, I asked that, are you thinking ahead about X, Y, and Z thing, just because it's sometimes it happens and that could be a real thing. Is that something y'all ever, obviously you're scouting and whatnot, but when you're playing a game, are you ever thinking about the ramifications, okay, win this game, win tomorrow, stuff like that, how that shakes out standings or potential rankings and stuff like that? Does that matter to you at all, whether it's on or off field?
Well, that's a good question that you asked because we've actually talked about that many times last season. We've had meetings. We're like, okay, this organization, blah blah blah, says we're ranked. This one says we're doesn't, or sorry, this one says we aren't ranked. This organization says we're gonna make it to the tournament, and then another one is like they're not even, their not name's not gonna get called, but
Mm-hmm.
all we have to do is just think of one game at a time. If you think like if you think of any game in the future, that's just gonna distract you. So
Yeah.
really it's just one game at a time, one game. And honestly, the rankings, yeah, they're awesome to get your name on there. Um, but we know who we are. Um, and we shouldn't focus on rankings. Um, and just focus on what we know we can do. And yeah.
Did Jake ever send you his projections? Because he has many projections.
Oh man, hold on. Now
There are
let's see if I
there are
can
certain
find.
people who we know who listen to this podcast who ask me for them every week, and I'm like, these don't matter. I'm just some guy. It's math. Like it's at the end of the day, it's who you lock in a room and they pick 64 teams. Like the people trying to figure it out on week 8 don't know what's going to happen the next 4 weeks. You know.
Look, Jake, you don't need to expose J Bat on local audio. All
Wait,
right.
what?
If he emails you asking for your projections, that's between you and him.
He does not, Maddie. That's our athletic director. But let's be clear, he does not ask me for what I think is going to happen. Anyways, so hearing your name get called, that's got to be up there in terms of best softball memories, though, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was
Is it the
awesome.
top? Is it like where does it rank?
I'd say it's up there. It might be number 2 though.
Ooh, what's number 1?
Number 1, okay, I know this was a long time ago, but it was Little League when I was 12. Our team was stacked,
Yes,
and
they were.
we made it to the championship of regionals, I'm pretty sure. No, 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 no. What's after regionals? Uh,
You were a game
Nationals?
away from Williamsport sectionals.
yeah, we were a
Sections.
game away from the World Series, and we kind of choked, but that was so fun. Just like staying in a room with just your teammates when you're 12 years old. Like imagine like how that went. And then and then I don't know, coming together and eating every meal with like all the different other or all the different teams from the other states and just meeting new people. That was really fun. And I will never forget that.
I did the same thing when I was playing baseball. We had a tournament in Cooperstown, and it was that
Oh,
exact same kind of mold of just like there's 100 teams there from all over the world, all over the country. Even some flew in from Hawaii for this thing,
mhm.
and it's just like it's just the perfect little haven for kids at that age and doing the baseball, softball stuff. Like, no, I get that. That sounds amazing.
I
Yeah.
think Josh went to that when he was a kid. And there we go. I wedged that in. That's his first mention on the podcast. So there we
Aw.
go. Haven't left out our brother. Yeah, no, that was a fun team. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I think about that one not infrequently, but that was, that was a cool one. Is there anything that you're like looking forward to? It doesn't have to be, obviously just softball related in the coming year, but what's next for you? Junior year of school, another year of softball, all that.
Yeah, obviously I'm looking forward to the season coming up in the spring. We're getting a bunch of new people on our team. Lots of transfers, lots of very talented freshmen coming in. Class wise, I'm looking forward to, I think I'm taking biochem actually. I'm taking more like major specific, like specific to biology instead of like the gen eds. So I'm excited to actually start getting into that stuff. And then this silly answer is that I'm moving into a house.
Nice.
That's always fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was in an apartment and I was like, no, I would rather be in a house. So
Congrats.
thank you.
I feel you on moving into a house, but that's a different topic.
I guess during the season, is there any particular portions of your game that you try to focus on more, or is that like more reactive to what you've seen yourself, how you've seen yourself play, or is it, even right now in the off season, are you particularly focusing on any particular aspect of defense, offense, whatever?
Off season and being in season, they're very different. They're like two different stages. Off season, that's kind of where I work on more mechanical things if I feel like something's off with my swing or just fielding wise. That's kind of when I try to fix it up, clean it up so that I'm feeling good. And then once we kind of start getting into being in season, if I feel off or something needs to be like drastically changed, I it's kind of a little late for that, but like I just have to trust myself that my preparation in the off season was good enough and that I did all I could. I worked hard, I prepared, and that's enough because this is a game of failure, as you guys have all probably heard a ton of times, and you really just cannot let the outcomes really get to you. It's a very mental game. Being in college has made me realize that a lot. I don't know, just in high school, you can probably just hit dingers every at bat, and like you're never really down. But when you get to college, it gets hard, and you gotta just kind of realize that it's not just gonna be all rainbows all the time. So kind of just
you're playing with a lot of kids who were number one for a real long time when you're you're playing D1 softball, especially in the ACC. I mean, a heck of a place to play too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us that you want to ask about the podcast or the site? I don't know why you would, but
I'm trying to think of what I could ask you. Do you guys have merch?
God, I wish.
Wait, I mean, it's.
Hold on. Do we have merch? We do not make merch because that's related to our intellectual property rights. But that's a great segue to this podcast sponsor, section103.com. This was unplanned for all those out there. I did not ask her to do this. Section103.com is this podcast's official apparel provider, sponsor. I don't know. Go check them out at section103.com. The wording isn't that important, but the spelling of that website is. That's section103.com. You can find all the latest and the greatest from them. And this week we have something exciting to talk about. It is the NIL player shirts are here. Dante Smith, Zach Pyron, number 4 and number 5 in navy, white, gold. Everything that I think we as Tech fans might hope to see from potential Tech apparel. It's great to see out on the market. They look I guess they're jerseys is probably the way to put it, but they do have them in gold, white, and navy for both Zach and Dante. Go check them out. As always, free shipping on orders over $70 every day. You can find Section 103 at section103.com and at Section 103 on Twitter. Thanks, Mads. That was helpful.
Oh, anytime.
I've got another segment. And it's a segment we do every week. And it's going to take a bit of explaining, so bear with me, ladies and gents. Maddi, this segment is called Jake's Historic Results Bit of the Week that needs a segment name. It's been months, and we still have not named it yet. What I've done is I have digitized all 17,000 approximately Georgia Tech sporting event results that have ever happened in sports that play games and matches. So that's football, men's and women's basketball, baseball, softball, men's, women's tennis, and volleyball. We're waiting on some other results for golf and swimming, but those aren't as important here. Basically, it's those 7 sports. They're all in a big database. I asked you earlier to send me a list of the college teams that your high school teammates wound up playing for. Among those, there are 7 athletes that went on to play varsity college ball. 2 played at D3 UAA schools, Case Western and WashU. They're not on this list. We haven't played them in any sport before they went D3 or swum against them or whatever. Swimming has some weird D3, D2 stuff going on. The other 5 represent 5 unique schools. There's Wisconsin, Northwestern, St. Louis University, Coastal Carolina, and of course, Louisville. So 5 schools, 7 sports. This is a team effort because this is a very open-ended question. Yes, do you have a question?
I was about to say Chardonnay, but you're talking about people I played with.
Yes, actively played with. And that's an interesting one because you played with her at Louisville, but he was my age in high school. So
technically, yes.
Yes, technically, yes. But
okay, never
only
mind.
People you played with in high school. So 5 schools, 7 sports. All time, There are 266 matchups among those 5, spread between all 7 sports. My first little bit is obvious. One of those schools is by far the most common played opponent. I think you can all guess which one that is.
Well,
Somebody going to guess?
Both Scotty and Northwestern the same conference, dude. I don't know who came first.
I was going to say Wisconsin.
Louisville? Tech has played
Louisville.
Sorry,
I forgot this was Tech oriented. Sorry. Yes. No. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No.
Yes.
Obviously, Louisville.
That is an all-time brain fart moment from all.
That's staying in. You can't cut that.
All of us did this. We're sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh no, they'll take away our license to podcast. Obviously, Louisville is the most played opponent by nature. That also means the sport with the most played between those two is also a Louisville and a sport combination. I want you to guess what that sport is.
So it's Georgia
most
Tech's
games between Tech,
yes, and Louisville, and we're guessing the sport here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
in previous games between Tech and Louisville,
we've had a lot of baseball tie-ins because they played too many games. Softball also plays too many games. So
is this not just baseball?
Yeah.
Baseball and softball combined do not even equal this sport.
Oh.
We've been conference.
I think it's volleyball.
Oh.
Nope. That's a good guess, though.
Wow. It's
women's basketball.
Stupid.
Men's basketball?
Men's basketball with 41 games played all time. The men's basketball teams were in the same conference, the Metro Conference, in the late 70s. So they played a few times there. And when both teams were independent, they had a couple games and then a regular feature on the schedule through the late 90s or mid-late 90s.
Okay.
Bobby Cremens made some good schedules. All right. With that out of the way, we've talked about the school with the most wins. We've talked about the sport and opponent with the most games played combined. Actually,
this really is the test question that's 1 A, B, C, D, E, F. We're really doing this.
It is. Now,
psychopath.
Obviously, the sport with the most wins among all those is baseball. It's existed since 1895. They've played 56 games against mutual opponents, but they're not the ones with the best win percentage among these teams in sports, despite being the one with the most total wins. Can you guess what that sport is that has the highest win percentage, sport plus opponent, among Coastal, Louisville, Northwestern, St. Louis, Wisconsin, baseball, football, men's basketball, men's tennis, softball, volleyball, women's basketball?
So we're matching Tech's best win percentage against these 5 schools and also guessing the sport here. Okay.
Yes.
It's football.
Football against Coastal?
Football's only played one of these schools.
Football against Louisville.
You're right, but you're wrong. Do you want to know why you're wrong? Because we've only played them twice in football, which is weird. The third times this year to open the season. Women's tennis, is 8-0 all time against Louisville. But I'm glad that you asked because, of course, women's tennis at 8 is more than the 2, 3, or 4 NOs that other sports have. The bizarre distinction is not only are football and women's tennis a combined 10-0 all time against Louisville, Georgia Tech has the lowest win percentage against Louisville of all of these schools, despite having 2 undefeated teams against them.
Like in general, we have the worst. Like Tech's winning percentage against Louisville as a whole is the worst of our ACC.
It's 3-7.
Okay. I misunderstood that for a second. It's collectively the entire school's win percentage against Louisville is the lowest of all of these schools, not just
despite being 8-0 against them in women's tennis.
Maddi, I blame your volleyball team. Please tell them to lose.
We're too good.
Would be nice.
They're too good.
Nice.
They are too good. It's not fair.
From the Elite Eight, by the way, Jack. Just so you know.
I don't know.
The one that you want to start with, Jack, is actually women's basketball, who is a perfect 10-0 against Tech, immediately balancing out those 10 wins between football and women's tennis. That's a 0% win percentage for those counting at home. Tech did lose on a buzzer beater 2 years ago. Tech volleyball has a 176 win percentage. That's 3-17. Softball is 294 all time. That's 5-17. I've seen 2 of those wins, so that's kind of sad. No offense to softball. Men's basketball is 366 all time. They are 15-26 against Louisville, while baseball is 8-20. Men's tennis is a perfect 6-6 for a nice even 500. Is that not a bizarre fun fact? Among all 5 of these schools, obviously football is batting 1,000. They're 2-0. Women's tennis, no shocker, is the next best at 727. Women's tennis at Georgia Tech is phenomenal. Tech has the best all-time win percentage among these schools against St. Louis at 786. Coastal at 707. You can blame softball's 6-6 record there as the 500. Everyone else is above. And then rounding us out, we are about even with both Northwestern and Wisconsin. What bizarre stat, I want you to guess, does that make us win percentage all time against these schools?
All 5 combined in everything.
All 5 combined, all 7 sports.
I guess, are we 500?
Akshay, do you have a guess?
No, but I feel like it's going to be something like that I've overthought and have decided not to
Jack's
consider.
Actually gotten it right already. We are exactly 133 and 133. And we found way more in this stat database than I possibly could have imagined. So thank you for indulging me on that.
That was a lot.
They're not usually this long, Maddi, I'll tell you that. We've lost every listener with that extended rant.
Thank goodness it's at the end of the episode.
After the ad read,
Look, it's a good bit. It's a good bit. Eventually we'll find a name for it. Maybe we'll find a sponsor for it.
Maybe. If anyone's out there that wants to sponsor this segment, let us know. We have naming rights available. That being said, I will take us out. Yeah. I mean, they want engineers, right? But I will take us out. Remember, tomorrow, today, by the time this comes out, 7 p.m. at Atlantic Station, you've got Chris Eubanks versus Andres Martin at the Atlanta Open. It's going to be a heck of a match. Can't wait to see how that all shakes out. As always, you can find us at FromTheRumbleSeat.com. You can email us your comments, questions, suggestions. We're running out of summer, so if you've got any thoughts on future episodes, that's FromTheRumbleSeat@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at FTRSblog. I'm at JakeGrant98. Jack is at Jack Nicholas. You can find Section 103 on Twitter, too. As long as Twitter still exists, that is at Section 103. Section103.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at From the Rumble Seat. And you can find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are sold. Rate, review, tell your friends. We really do appreciate it. Good night, good luck, and go Jackets. Thanks again, Mads.
Thank you for having me.